Welcome back. Welcome back to Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast. We're going to continue to share life experiences. We have another amazing guest, Miss Kitsy. And Miss Kitsy, we're going to ask you if you could come up and introduce yourself. And then after, as y'all know, City Sid is going to kick off that first question.
Yeah. My name is Kitsy Higgins. First, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. The moment I talked to you about this podcast idea, I thought it was great. I love that we just get to be unfiltered and just be ourselves, which is amazing. I help women create a life they're obsessed about. So that's alignment work, that's personal development, and then just manifesting and going after your dreams. There's somewhat manifesting, there's life coaching, there's also trusting your intuition because every person's different. For me, I offer one-on-one sessions, group coaching, and then also digital courses so that you can get caught up to where I am pretty much and do it self-taught way, which is great.
Well, thank you again for being here with us this evening and be willing to share a little bit about your life. As we do with all of our guests, we like to start at the beginning of your journey. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, how you grew up, your dynamics with your family, and if you experienced any trauma or, significant trials or tribulations in those years.
Yeah, it's funny you ask about childhood. I didn't speak for the first 8 years of my life. I don't. There was talk at some point of, is she autistic? Nowadays, they would probably say, well, she is autistic. My mom was a school teacher, so that kind of helped her see people that were dealing with, type of educational problems like mine. I think the biggest thing that I remember, I'm having a memory coming back to me of my ex-husband and I got a divorce a few years ago. And unfortunately, I had to go to therapy, which I don't think is unfortunate. It's actually probably a really good thing. But she started picking up that I was not in tune with my emotions. And and she said to me, she said, sometimes you like someone will just do little things and it's not like a great big trauma, it's like 1,000 traumas. And so you might not necessarily have like an exact image of, when the abuse happened. It's not like a physical abuse where it like happened, one great big abuse. It was more of like a whole bunch of little tiny cuts. So to me, what I've learned is I had an abandonment wound where I've learned to just abandon myself, abandon my needs, abandon my emotions, uh, just abandon everything. So as much as the divorce was hard and as much as the separation was hard, the last few years have really gained me the opportunity to see some of the things that like some people learn in childhood, but that I unfortunately didn't have. I would like to say primarily it's because that my family did not know how to deal with emotions. I would like to say that. So that's there's other questions I've been having lately of like, was there other alternative motives of me not learning that feminine side? But I do also believe that in those generations or in my generation, like the early 1980s, that our mothers did not know how to properly communicate emotions. I would like to say she does not know how to properly communicate the emotions. I would like to say that it was a unconscious thing that she did not knowing the impact and not knowing how it would ultimately affect my life, which in turn has created, just someone that for most of my life, relying on food, relying on substance, and what else? Um, Learning to not acknowledge my feelings and not even realize my worth. If you want to see your worth and truly see, the way how God sees you, you have to feel your feelings and have that relationship with yourself and that confidence in yourself. And when you have not gained those the emotional intelligence, the emotional IQ, unfortunately, um, confidence is out the window, worth is out the window. But personally, I think that that's the work that I do. As part of it is helping people get secure and helping people get confident in themselves, because I think there is a lot of families that are like this, and there's a lot of women who would say, I don't have a huge memory of trauma in my childhood. And it's like, okay, well, are you in touch with your emotions? Are they healthy? And if they're not, if you have a low sense of self-esteem or self-value, then more than likely something got missed in your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Which, again, I still think that is the work that we need to do. And for me, I try to have a good relationship with my kids. I have 2 boys, 9 and 14, and I try to have a good relationship. And just in the car, I was like, are you feeling sad? Because I've learned you don't say, are why are you sad, but saying, are you feeling sad? So it's what is it called? You're co-regulating with the other person, validating their emotions. And so I'm hoping that when my kids leave my house, that they are in touch with their emotions, that they can at least be farther along emotionally than I was.
And I agree with you on that, because I was in tune with my emotion, and I think a lot of people don't connect with their emotions. Kitsy, I want to go back. I want to ask you a question. In your childhood, 8 years with not speaking, how was that? How was that emotionally, or what are some of the challenges did you face?
It's interesting. I think the biggest challenge is, well, 2 things. My mom told me that, like, I've started wearing prettier dresses, or like girly dresses. Well, I've started wearing dresses, which I rarely ever did back in the day. And I asked my mom was like, I'm so surprised that you're wearing dresses. She's like, you never wore dresses when you were a kid. And I said, well, did you ever ask me why? And she said, well, I couldn't, you didn't talk. And I'm like, and then if you would have asked me why, could you have even asked me another question of like, like even went even farther. So you could have really gotten to why I didn't wear dresses. Maybe it was I didn't want to be seen, or I felt ugly, or I felt uncomfortable. I didn't feel right in that feminine side of my body. But because I didn't speak, there was no way for her to find out why. So imagine here you have a daughter or just a child, and you have no clue what they like or what they don't like, or what brings them joy, which you do to a point, but you don't really know them, which is really sad. So, having these people that don't couldn't really couldn't really connect with me is like sad. And then the other thing too is that, what's the other thing? I knew there was something else I was thinking about. Um, I think it started the trend of feeling like I didn't fit in here. And that no one could understand me, which no one can see me, no one can no one can hear me. Whew, my insides are feeling it. It's feeling something talking about this. But so I think that was the start of having that belief of no one understands me, no one sees me, no one hears me. And that probably went around for most of my life. So those probably are, and we we live in society where connection is everything. And then also like you having a relationship with your child where you like understand them and like you see them. And so um so while many people are seeing their children at a young age because they understand them, I didn't have that, and it took a long time before I could speak fully or that people could see me, which is I think those, what are they called, wounds, are have followed me all throughout my career, all throughout my life. And now I'm finally seeing myself, hearing myself, feeling myself, and knowing myself, and doing that work of the things that I learned at such a young age.
Now, being as though, I would say probably between at least 5 and 8. Those are years that you 9 times out of 10 remember. You can remember, vivid moments or have vivid memories of those ages. What was, I guess, what was the personification of your, I guess, what that block was that was like preventing you from speaking? Like, was it just a voice wouldn't come out? Was it I just didn't have anything to say, but I had the ability? Like what
Yeah.
was it coming, or what was, kind of your mental process when, you can't get the words out, but clearly you're trying to communicate?
If I'm correct from what my mom told me, it was like gibberish. But again, I think there's something to wounds, and that like those wounds created the woman I was up until the day that I started truly healing them. So for whatever and what I've heard. And so those wounds created that person who I was meant to be up until what, 4 years ago? Three? There, I mean, because, right, isn't there that whole belief that like wounds are shaping us? And so they've shaped us into a version of us. And then now that once we've worked through those wounds, then we can, if we work through those wounds, then we can become a different person. And so what the wounds may have been the most hardest, difficult beliefs about ourselves can be the most beautiful gifts.
Did you have
So,
challenges with other kids because you weren't talking?
did I what?
Did you have challenges with other kids because you
Yeah,
weren't
for
talking
sure.
at that age?
For sure. And yeah, it's interesting because probably in kindergarten I felt ostracized or left out. And I remember just 2 years ago I felt ostracized and left out from groups of people. Now I've shifted that belief to thinking, no, like I am welcoming. Many people enjoy me, and I'm part of the crowd. And I've started seeing that, luckily in my life. I didn't realize, wow, like actually I am kind of popular in this town. I know large groups of people and we're friends. And so I'm like, oh wow, like again, I didn't see it for most of my life though. So that was still kind of covering up actually what was happening in my life, which is so crazy that like wounds can cover up what you're experiencing in your life. So it's yeah, a lot of that stuff that was traumatizing and at in younger years, followed me through up until 4 years ago, probably.
And when you began speaking, was there just like, like a backlog of, things that you wanted to say, or, did you still kind of carry the just kind of being into yourself, or being shy, or feeling like nobody, was listening to you anyway?
Yeah.
What kind of, I guess, dynamic did you take on once you could communicate?
I don't know. I can't answer that for being an 8-year-old, but definitely for sure feeling unseen, unheard, unvalued, um, just everything so I don't really, I think it was, well, no, actually reverse that is that I'm talkative. And my mom says sometimes, she's like, oh, she's making up for those first 8 years. So, so being like a coach and being someone that gives guidance and speaks and like does this for like an hour, some people would be like, oh my God, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling like, like just, this is too much, where I'm like, let's keep going. Let's do another 2 hours. So I think I think I'm more talkative, which doing this type of business, talking comes in handy.
And I wanted to ask, did they ever give you a diagnose, or did they ever say why you were delayed in speech?
No, but I mean, I still went on to graduate high school, and then I met my husband in college. He never graduated. I did. And then I went on to get my master's in business. So, though I had that long period of time of not speaking, I, um, one, I feel like there's a huge tenacity that like, that most people would give up after 2 years of not succeeding something. Like I can spend years doing things where other people would give up. So there's a level of tenacity that I have that like I don't want to speak highly of myself, but like that other people could kind of not touch. And again, I'm not saying that as a good thing either, because the only reason why I have such tenacity is because I had to learn how to speak, and I had to actually try for 8 years. So it was a very, so because I had that experience, I've created a tenacity that is extremely strong. So I guess, is that a positive or a negative? Though it's a negative to that scenario, but it's a positive of it.
Absolutely. Now, I guess, upon finishing school, or like getting through, the remainder of your school years, once you were able to communicate in what we would call normally, was there, did you have to kind of, I guess, were there any academic challenges or anything like that? Or were you, kind of completely up to level that you should have been
I think I was
for
up
your
to the
age?
level. Yeah, I was up to the level. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And just what were the I guess the most significant ways your life changed once you began speaking, or what can you remember, what was that moment maybe like was it just something random, or were you screaming something, you bumped your toe, like what
Well,
what was the
so
scenario?
my mom had like a therapist that came to the house, like a speech therapist. So she would come all the time, and what was it? She was in kindergarten, but then so it must have been like a year or two after that. So I was like, it was really dedicated stuff. My son actually started talking at the age of like 6. He was still a little bit behind too, but like when he started actually speaking at like the age of 5, I was like, I'm like, he'll be fine. I'm like, he's good. Like, I'm like, I didn't speak for 8 years. I was like, he might have some words that aren't great at the age of 5. I was like, oh, this is nothing. I'm like, to other people, they'd freak out. To me, I was just like, oh, it'll be okay. But I think what's huge though, is that while I was coming into school with these 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds, knowing their emotions, communicating them properly, communicating and expressing themselves properly, I wasn't having that. And I wasn't, I lost that. So I was a huge deficit. And then not including, um, it's like playing a sport. Like if you take years off and then you start playing at the age of 8, you're going to have all these other people who started at the age of 2. Like I was 6 years behind. So that's that's a lot. And so I guess you could say that I was, probably up until me going to therapy like 6 years ago, was I actually probably getting caught up to where people my age may have that. And don't get me wrong, not every person is in touch with their emotions either. So there may be, there's other people that are also not in touch with their emotions. And what I've learned too is that emotions are huge. That feminine side is huge. And that is what, like to me, I look at the brain as it's just a computer, and the emotions is just it's spitting out what it's dealing with in that moment. So if you're going on a beach and you're with a boyfriend and you're like, oh my God, this is so beautiful, you're going to feel specific feelings that go along with that scenario. And then if someone's screaming at you, you're going to have another scenario, and it's going to spit out other feelings, which is just normal. It's normal. If it's spitting out or computing the wrong feelings, then okay, maybe you might need to get some things checked. But for the most part, most people, if you have an experience, I'd probably feel close to the same thing you're feeling. It's just, you're like, the computers are, off a little bit, but for the most part, they're correct. So not acknowledging something that your computer needs to be processing constantly, aka your brain, then we're just having a whole bunch of fucking 8-year-olds walking the planet that are not properly processing things that once we start actually feeling our feelings and start processing them fully, then we could be having 30 and 40-year-olds and 80-year-olds actually walking the planet with the right age,
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I think I have a 2-part question. Well, one is really simple. I want to know, when you started talking, what is like the first thing that you started talking about? Like what
I don't
came?
know. That's a great question for me to ask my mom, which I'll do that next time. I don't
Okay.
know. I really, I know, yeah, I don't know. I know my family also has these issues. Like I have a cousin that also didn't talk for like 2 years or something. So not drastically as much as me. So I think it is some type of family thing. My son's also, I mean, my 14-year-old still gets speech therapy for the letter R in some words. So there's definitely like a speech therapy thing in my family.
So it's genetic, and I'm surprised they haven't given it a diagnosis yet.
What, for me and the 8-year-old?
I meant just the speech delay.
Yeah.
Like what is there a diagnosis or a condition? Because it sounds genetic.
Yeah. Well, and I do think that I've kind of looked up like autism. I've looked up neurodivergent, and I'm like, like I have a very interesting life. Like I don't work a 9 to 5. I don't have a full-time job. I kind of have more like multi streams of income. And I feel like in a way like I'm just channeling those businesses. I just feel like I'm a great big channeler. And for some people might channel like a deceased loved one. For me, it's I'm channeling these businesses, and I have what, 4 or 5. So I think that I don't think that that's totally normal. Don't get me wrong. I think many people have multiple streams of income, but like if someone has like 4 or 5 businesses, it's there's some type of personality trait. So I do things very different than the people I know, and my life does not look like, still to this day, like a life that most of my friends and family and people that I spend time with a lot match with theirs.
And with your son, did you kind of help him along his journey based on, the ways of which maybe would have been successful for you, or that you wish that, may have been done with your, kind of work with your speech? Or, did you kind of look up new things, new ways to do stuff? What was kind of like your guided I wouldn't say treatment plan really, because there's,
No,
not necessarily anything wrong with him. But
no.
just to kind of get him to the milestone of, speaking.
Yeah, for me, it was pretty much, luckily, I had a mom who was a school teacher. So she was very kind, very patient, very loving about the speech therapy and my speaking. And luckily for me, because I know what it's like, I felt that I was giving the same grace to my son, which is good. God forbid if I would have been raised by someone that was like, just kind of looked at it very differently, it would have ended very differently. And I remind my son that he now has a tenacity, which I think is true with any person that has to fight for something, or that they have to spend a year or two to work on to achieve. That I tell him kind of my lesson of that, because you have this speech impediment, you have this level of tenacity and gumption that and I'm not saying it's confidence. Maybe it's confidence in going after things that you want, not necessarily confidence though, because that's very different. But like I tell them like that, like because you have like been going after this goal, and it's been for a while, that that you will have this type of tenacity too. So I think like it is kind of as much as that not speaking was in a way a curse, there is a benefit of a level of tenacity and gumption and characteristic that you gain from having that handicapped.
You're on mute.
All right, I'm just running my mouth. I want to go into, because I think we hear this a lot, that we feel like we have abandonment issues.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, and that may tie into the family not knowing how to deal with your emotions? Can you talk a little bit about how you felt like, now that you're older and you're going through therapy, because you really didn't realize it, why you had felt like you had abandonment issues?
A few years ago, I was dealing with, or like learning about abandonment, and I told my mom, I was like, I feel like there was a part where that happened. And she did say that like I was like a teenager, or like 10, and I was dealing with girls at my school, and like mean girls. And so she was being there listening and supporting and being emotionally available for me. And then unfortunately, she they were going through a hard time, and she had to get a job, and a second job. So any of that being emotionally available and being there for me and co-regulating with me, she stopped completely doing, because she was no longer emotionally available because she was doing that second job. So I felt, I think at that point, a very large emotional abandonment. Here's your mom that's being there for you, helping you process things and helping you acknowledge what's going on, to just be completely, to stop doing that is hard. At some point I started eating candy as a means to stop the emotions, not understanding that it's anything you do to cover up emotions is going to be a crutch, whatever you choose to do. What was the other abandonment? There was something else that I just recently realized. I got to think about that. There was something that I forget. It's not coming to me right now. But there was something else that I really recently realized, like, oh dang, like that was totally abandonment. And it's interesting though, because I just think that other generations didn't have the tools and techniques that we have now. That I think the more we talk about feelings, the more we say it's safe to express them and it's safe to feel them, the more we are staying away. I think the other thing too is that I just really learned that I should abandon everything in here to focus on the 3D or the physical or the masculine area, rather than the feminine being within, and or the within, the needs, the wants, the desires. So when you're so focused on the 3D and there's nothing going on within other than work and school, then you're just going to abandon everything. You're going to abandon your needs, your desires, your dreams, your thoughts, your boundaries, your standards. Just everything is going to go out the window. And you're not going to just do it at the age of 8 or at the age of 9. You're going to keep doing that all, that sounds horrible, all throughout your life, until you actually do the work, which is scary. It's really this, I hate having to say this and this sounds really mean, but the society has really created for women to abandon themselves like no other. And luckily I feel, oh nice, so my son's saying check the bathroom. I don't know what on earth that means. But yeah, what does that mean? Well, let's think about that in regards to, I think it's one of those things that if we are constantly abandoning ourselves, the pipe on receiving love and receiving anything is just impossible. So the more that we can be true to ourselves, the more we can be true to everything and speak it and put up boundaries and put up, walk away if we have to walk away. And we really start receiving everything and receiving a lot more.
Absolutely. Now, getting through high school, moving on to college, since you said you were kind of reserved in certain ways, just based on what you had been through, what was that like? Did you go to school far away from home? Did you, need any certain accommodations while at school? socially, how did that work for you? Like, what was that experience like? Just kind of living in the body that you had at the time.
Yeah, there was no accommodations. It was just normal. Um, I goes back to that abandonment type of things, where because I had low self-esteem, low self-worth, I just did a lot of behaviors that would redeem myself as just abandoning myself. Which now that I realize that that's what it is. Um, So it was more of the people not seeing me, people not seeing my worth, myself not seeing my worth, um, my not seeing my worth in my body or in my mind, or anything. So it was more of like a really, I don't want to say it was traumatic. I mean, I sowed my oats. It was a fun time. It was enjoyable. I look back and think that was a crazy time. But but yeah, if you really crack it down, I was abandoning myself, not knowing my worth, and everything where I live with today with standards and boundaries and knowing my needs and being true to myself, and that never was happening then. So it was a very, what's it called? Like where I was getting outside validation. So I think it's more of just learning me not being seen or heard or valued, or um, what is it? Seen, heard. What's the third? Or probably even feeling unloved. Um, all of that stuff just very easily went into college and got a whirlwind. So it's kind of no surprise that um, I mean, the relationship was still good at the beginning, but I should have had standards and boundaries available and should have known what my full needs were, and walked away when there was signs of disrespect.
And I want to ask, going through a lot of this, I know you mentioned that you relied on food, substance. I don't know what the substance is, and filling substance fillings and not worthy. Um, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
Well,
So I might say some stuff that might be disagreed with, which is totally fine.
it's how you feel. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So for me, I have kind of an okay relationship with alcohol. Um, I got really drunk in college, and then I was like, well, I don't like that feeling. And ever since then, I've kind of like controlled well with my drinking. I can do it socially and, drink 2 or 3 drinks, then just be done and be fine. For me, though, weed was very different. My brother and I started doing weed, and he left to go back home or to move away because he graduated. And I said to my mom, my parents came out for his graduation party, and I pulled her to the bathroom and I said, I'm feeling really depressed. And which again, this is a weekend while she was there. That was normal to have said to have said something on that weekend. Um, and she said, "Well, you're just trying to get attention," and she left. Which now that I've looked back, well, that makes sense. I felt depressed. Here's my brother, who was a friend, and we lived together for a few months in college, and he was just always there for me. And here he is leaving. Like, feeling depressed would be normal, and feeling that loss of not having that family member there is extremely, like, makes sense. And so for her to just said, well, you're just trying to get attention, kind of horrible. abandonment. And so I started doing weed like daily or nightly. And then him leaving just made it worse. And then September 11th happened a few months later. And then so I was doing it nightly, like all the time. And it was the only way for me to get to bed. And so that February, so my brother left college in June, September 11th happened. And then after that, February Super Bowl happened. And I went to a party and it said like 10 signs you're addicted to marijuana. And like I read them all, sign, and I was like, oh shit, I'm 9 out of the 10. Fuck. And like the one was like, like you have to have it to go to bed, or like you have to have it. And so I went to outpatient therapy and I let go of, because it said like you have to let go of your friends that do it, and switch your friends. So I let go of the friends that I had and found a new set of friends. So that was it was hard not having a person. Like luckily I seeked help, and luckily I had to find someone that heard my emotions and did not invalidate them. So that was a hard time of proof that feeling of abandonment, feeling of unseen, unheard, unvalued, unloved. And it just kind of really marked me. But luckily I sought help, and luckily, it was embarrassing going for therapy. It was embarrassing being like, I don't do that stuff. I've probably done it about 7 times since, which was 22 years ago. I very rarely do it. I'll do it once in a blue moon if it's a social situation. I have gummies actually, like from New York State that I got, and are just in a locked safe, and still I've never done them where other people would have done them. And there's no judgment. I don't care if other people do it. Again, it's just another crutch of what people use to not process things. So while other people can say, oh, I did that, and like, oh, I still do that, it's like, oh, I let that go 22 years ago. But again, I have other crutches too of, eating sweets, of kind of, having 2 or 3 sweets or something.
Now, with all of the, over the years, the developments and research and legalizations and whatever ways, do you think that, you would have went the same route or felt like it was necessary, as far as therapy goes, or, kind of taking a route that, the same route most people would like that do hard drugs would take? Do you feel like that was necessary, for you to stop, or for the underlying issues of why you were using, or do you kind of still feel the same way about it?
I do, and it might be a little bit harsh. I know some people have different viewpoints. I know my one family member like did it. I don't know if they still do, but they do it nightly, or they did do it nightly for years. And I understand that they have, diagnosis for a specific thing. But to me, it's I like to have a clear vessel, and I like to not have something that might be like, I don't take anxiety pills. I don't take anti-stress pills. The only few times I did, it was in college, and I did it as like a drug, not for like a prescription drug. So for me, it's I like that clear vessel. I like feeling in control and not feeling like something has a hold of me, or like that I'm dependent on something. So that's where I'm at. Again, I know every person's different. And, I teach my kids that, that it's all based on what do you want to do when you're dealing with stress, and that can be a stress reliever, and to think of other ways or to think of other approaches on how you can deal with stress in a better way. Um, so, uh, because I do think some people do that for stress, and it's only for stress, and it's there's other ways. There's therapy, and there's coaching, and um, there's outpatient rehab to process what needs to be processed, so that that people are staying away from dependency type things.
I don't know if I asked. I might. I think I did. No, you did say you were bullied as a child. That's a big impact. Um,
Yeah, I was more bullied probably for, I can't remember if I was bullied for not talking. I can't remember that. So that's very possible. What I do remember is like in high school, people bullying me for just being overweight. I've had a lot of experiences in my life for getting shame over being playful. Like, so I think I was like 12 or 13, and I was still playing with dolls, like Barbie dolls, and a friend like shamed me on it. And then I bought a bike, and this is just like 15 years ago. I was like 30 something. And this guy's like, oh, well, every shape and size is riding a bike nowadays, I guess. Which, like, that was
oh, that
mean.
was so mean. Yeah,
I
that
was
was
so
mean.
mean. I should have turned around. Well, actually, I have to remind myself that, like, I think when we are a kind-hearted person, I think karma kind of cleans itself out. So I don't know what happened to that person, but I'm guessing karma probably did its part. It was very harsh, and so there's been a lot of experiences in my life where play is not accepted and or judged and or shamed, which I'm learning that's actually like very feminine. And unfortunately this world doesn't have a lot of that, like playfulness, and like because a lot of there's not been like, because femininity has kind of been hidden, that playfulness and that fun lightness is not been around much. And so I had a lot of just periods and examples of that specific type of personality traits, which are actually like good, that's good to be playful. Like that's um I know it might not be normal, and I know that might be something that's abnormal, but like being playful is actually a great thing that shows that something's still alive and kicking in your body, you know?
Now, as the title of our episode says, create a life that you're obsessed with.
Mhm.
What would you say is what was the, I guess, goal, in adolescence, of what you wanted your life to be, or, what your dreams and aspirations were versus, what you have now, and, or, just how has that changed, with your life experience at this point?
Yeah, I can't really remember what I wanted to be. I asked my mom. So I was in dance for 8 years. And so I was on the stage a lot for this dance thing. And I asked my mom, I was like, did I really like being on stage? And she's like, I can't really remember. Um, so she couldn't remember that. But so I'm like, okay, interesting. I had moments where I was on stage and I was seen by many people. So I wonder if there was something there. I don't know. Um, my son and I went down to my mom's basement the last time I was there, and I found a limo car. And it's like this limo that's like that long. And I remember playing with it all the time. So while other people have like little matchbox cars, here I was like playing with like a limo. which is funny. Um, I definitely probably like thought of Paris a lot, and I probably thought of like glitz and glamour, and I do go to Paris sometimes. So that definitely pulls that out. I think what's valuable now is just having a life uh, where I am hearing and seeing and validating and um, following those emotions on that inner child so that um, I can really live the best life possible and sticking to my boundaries and standards and knowing myself in a way. So, like, my inner child was not seen up until the age of 8. So, me just having that so strong relationship with her that I know what I need and I know what I want and what I desire and what feels great and what feels not so great and what feels amazing and feels okay and checking in with her daily saying, what do you want to do today? Where do you want to go? And then just doing that. So and really like following through on it. Um today today I was like, what do you want to do? And it was she wanted to go to a coffee shop that sells these like really good donuts and they're big and they have these vanilla icing and vanilla. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And I went and I was like, I was so pissed if they don't have it, and they didn't have it. And I'm still feeling depleted or like depressed by not having it. But I'm like, it's okay, we'll get it later. But so like just following through on what she wants to do and hopefully finding other people that also can relate to those wounds of not feeling seen and not feeling heard and I think also, I'm hearing unsafe that like when you are not in touch with your emotions and you don't know about them or they're too big or they're whatever, you also feel like you're unsafe to feel them. So like luckily I feel like I've worked through that too.
And we're getting close to time. I want to ask a real quick question because this was a part of our title. How did being in a relationship with your ex from high school and your marriage abruptly ending? What were your emotions going through that? Do you think a part of your childhood played a part in that?
Well, the way how we ended it was very abruptly.
Hmm.
I felt extreme abandonment because he abruptly ended a 14-year relationship. At that point, I felt like out of the blue. Now that I look back, it should have been ended a long time before that. And what I was doing at that point was stressing him out. And so, of course, he would leave. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's right on track for being unseen, unheard, unvalued, and just feeling that abandonment. My thing is though, is what I believe is that the person you're in a relationship with is you. And after a breakup, it's a great opportunity to see how they were showing up in that relationship. And that when you actually really look to see who they are and start being like, how can I apply this in my life? That things can really shift for you. He was very emotionally attuned or emotionally regulated. He was very unbothered, nonchalant, and in a way feminine in the fact of like I would get upset and he would just be like just totally unbothered rather than actually like talking it over and being like, you have every right to feel sad. Like that makes total sense why you'd feel like that. Um, and so I really applied those characteristics that I saw that he was doing within me. And I feel like that's really has drastically shifted my life. and he's an Aquarius. And so I feel like that's really helped me step into like the Aquarius age, and that feminine, like unbothered, emotionally regulated, nonchalant, understanding that the ego is going to freak out and you're just all like zen. So I feel like I gained so much from him, and I really feel that because of who he was showing up in our relationship, that I can now help the people in this generation, in this lifetime, where they're at. So luckily I've seen those gifts of that relationship, and I feel like I'm a lot more whole and a lot more, one, emotionally attuned, but also just more mature, more mature since really reviewing that relationship and who he was showing up as.
We are at time. That hour went by fast.
It did.
Yeah. We would ask, from your personal life experience, we're not therapists, we're not psychologists. This is from your personal life experience. What advice would you give someone from your personal life experience that may be struggling with abandonment, not attaching to their emotions? What advice would you give them from your personal life experience that started your healing journey that may help them?
No, I think one would definitely to see therapy. That would be the first thing, or to look for a coach. Two would be, I hired a coach many moons ago, and she, I call it FFDCC, which is first just do this weekly to start with, and make it like a date, like whether if it's just going on it, like you're going to get dinner and then do this afterwards, or you're just going to do it every Friday, and write out or speak or write out your feelings. And just, I'm feeling sad. Okay, why? And then like saying all the reasons why you're feeling sad. And then what's the next feeling? Keep going until that stops. And so you're just at least learning about what's going on and processing what's happening in your life. And then next would be fears. Like, what are your fears? Like, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to this, and this isn't going to work out. And I'm going to be so unhappy about this, and just whatever fears you have. And then doubt. So it's like, yeah, the likelihood of me ever meeting a man that treats me amazing and kind, like I actually deserve, I'm never going to have that happen. Like, I doubt that would ever happen. So just writing out all those doubts that you actually think will actually happen. And then confusion, which is a question, but say it in a positive way. Like, not why is this happening, but what did I learn from this? And then finally clarity of just maybe Rome wasn't built in a day, or clarity of, just getting clarity, because now that you've cleaned out your brain, you can actually get clear on what's happening, what you need to be doing. So that would be my best advice. And that has drastically changed my life and allowed me to process things without a therapist or a coach.
And what we always like to do on our show is give our guests a chance to participate in shameless plug. And so you see all of your information scrolling across the bottom here. If you can let our viewers know if your story resonated with them in any way, if it is okay that they reach out, and on what channel they can reach out. If there's any projects or organizations that you advocate for, if you have anything for sale, or if you want to tag your own businesses, you have the floor.
Yeah. So my biggest thing, as I said at the beginning, is that I offer one-on-one sessions. I do coaching programs where you're working with me longer periods of time, where we can do the calls and then texting. And then I offer, again, I'm also on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook, and then to do digital courses, which will, some of these courses are just they're so empowering. And every time I sell them, I just go to another level. So it's, there's a lot of great emotions and shifts that happen with these digital courses. So if you want a more the self-guiding kind of tour or self-guiding lessons, I have about, oh God, there's a few of them that like read the one and then see which one fits the most. One course or one has like 5 courses, and it's my worthiness, where it's just those initial steps of getting into your worth, seeing your worth, and acting like you're worthy. Because when you tap into your worth, anything's possible. You're stepping into unlimited possibility. Which is fun.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your testimony. It's an honor.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for this opportunity. It was awesome. And thank you for keep making a difference that you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. If you can please hold Kitsy while we wrap up everything. We want to thank everyone for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we're going to continue to share life experiences. Ain't that right, City said?
That's right.
That's right. Please come like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Unfiltered Unspoken Podcast, where we share tons of resources by sharing other people's life experiences. This is resource-based. So hopefully Kisty's episode will help you wherever you need help at to start your journey to healing. And make sure each and every Monday at 8 p.m. we went live in YouTube and in our chat group. So make sure that you come and join our groups. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Bye.
Pleasure.